They're trying to bury the truth about what really happened between Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan. The WWE universe is being lied to, and I'm absolutely sick of it. What you witnessed on SmackDown wasn't just another heated exchange, it was a calculated betrayal that's about to rip the women's division apart at the seams. And if you think WWE management wants you to know the real story behind this explosive confrontation, you're living in a fantasy world. Becky Lynch, the woman who built the modern women's division with her bare hands, is being systematically disrespected, and Liv Morgan is nothing more than a corporate puppet dancing to Triple H's tune. But here's what they don't want you to know. This entire storyline is designed to protect their golden girl while burying the woman who made women's wrestling relevant again. You want the real truth? Stick around because I'm about to expose the dirty politics, the backstage manipulation, and the shocking reason why this king and queen of the ring match is rigged before it even happens. Let's start with the facts they're trying to hide from you. Becky Lynch didn't just become the first ever undisputed WWE Women's Champion by accident, she fought through a system that was designed to keep her down. While other so-called chosen ones were getting handed opportunities on silver platters, Becky was clawing her way through the ranks, dealing with injuries, politics, and a management team that saw her as nothing more than a mid-card placeholder. But here's where it gets infuriating. The moment Becky proved she could carry this entire division on her shoulders, the moment she became the man, and transcended wrestling to become a legitimate cultural icon, WWE started plotting her downfall. They couldn't handle the fact that their carefully manufactured stars were being overshadowed by someone who earned every single accolade through pure grit and determination. Enter Liv Morgan, the perfect corporate creation. Young, marketable, and most importantly, controllable. While Becky was out there revolutionizing women's wrestling, speaking her mind, and refusing to be anyone's puppet, Liv was backstage playing politics, making the right friends, and positioning herself as the safe choice for championship gold. What happened on SmackDown wasn't just disrespect, it was character assassination. Liv Morgan stood in that ring, holding the SmackDown Women's Championship that rightfully belongs to Becky Lynch, and had the audacity to question the legacy of the woman who paved the road she's walking on. But here's the part that will make your blood boil: this was planned. WWE Creative knew exactly what they were doing when they put these two women in the ring together. They wanted to create controversy, they wanted to divide the fanbase, and most importantly, they wanted to justify their decision to push Liv Morgan as the face of the division while slowly phasing out Becky Lynch. Think about it, when was the last time you saw Becky Lynch get a fair shake in a major storyline? When was the last time creative gave her the respect she deserves as a former undisputed champion? Instead, they've been booking her in meaningless feuds, making her look weak in defeat after defeat, and now they're using Liv Morgan as the final nail in the coffin. The psychological warfare isn't just happening between these two wrestlers, it's happening between WWE management and the fans who refuse to accept their manufactured narrative. They're trying to rewrite history, making you forget that Becky Lynch single-handedly elevated women's wrestling while Liv Morgan was still learning how to work a crowd. Here's what they don't want you to realize: this entire king and queen of the ring setup is a sham. The outcome has already been decided in board meetings and creative conferences, not in the ring where it should be determined. Liv Morgan isn't being positioned as champion because she's the best wrestler, she's being pushed because she fits their corporate image of what a women's champion should be. Look at the evidence. While Becky Lynch was out there having MOTY candidates with Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, and Bianca Belair, where was Liv Morgan? Getting squashed by Ronda Rousey and playing second fiddle in faction storylines. But somehow, someway, she magically becomes championship material the moment WWE decides they need a fresh face to replace their biggest star. This is the same company that buried CM Punk, that held down Daniel Bryan, that tried to force Roman Reigns down our throats for years before he finally found his footing. And now they're doing it to Becky Lynch, the woman who saved their women's division from irrelevance. The alliance shifts happening in the women's division aren't organic storytelling, they're strategic positioning. WWE is making sure all the right people are aligned with Liv Morgan while isolating Becky Lynch, making her look like the problem when she's actually the solution this division desperately needs. You think the psychological warfare is just happening on screen? Think again. The real mind games are being played backstage, where WWE executives are trying to convince the locker room that Becky Lynch is difficult to work with, while painting Liv Morgan as the perfect company player. This is propaganda at its finest. They're using selective editing, manipulated social media presence, and carefully crafted storylines to make you forget that Becky Lynch is the reason women's wrestling is taken seriously today. Before, the women's matches were bathroom breaks, now they main event WrestleMania. But somehow Liv Morgan gets credit for continuing that legacy. The heated exchange we witnessed wasn't just two wrestlers having words, it was the culmination of months of behind-the-scenes politics designed to transfer legitimacy from the woman who earned it to the woman who was chosen for it. And if you can't see that, you're exactly the kind of fan WWE is counting on. Let's talk about this premium live event and why it's the perfect vehicle for WWE's master plan. King and Queen of the Ring, a tournament that's supposed to celebrate excellence and determine the best of the best. But when it comes to the women's division, it's nothing more than an elaborate stage play designed to crown their chosen one while humiliating the woman who built the throne. The tournament structure, the opponents, the scheduling, everything has been carefully orchestrated to ensure Liv Morgan looks strong while making Becky Lynch look like yesterday's news. This isn't competition, it's manipulation. And the worst part, they're doing it right in front of your faces, confident that you'll buy into their narrative without question. Think about the opponents they'll likely put in Becky's path versus the ones they'll give Liv Morgan. Think about the interference patterns, the referee decisions, the commentary bias that will subtly influence your perception of each match. This isn't wrestling, it's theater designed to justify a predetermined outcome. What's happening to Becky Lynch is a slap in the face to every wrestling fan who believes in merit-based success. This is a woman who scratched and clawed her way from the bottom of the women's division, who reinvented herself when creative had nothing for her, who created the persona out of pure desperation and turned it into the most compelling character in modern wrestling. But merit doesn't matter when corporate image is on the line. Liv Morgan represents everything WWE wants in a champion: young, attractive, media-friendly, and most importantly, willing to follow the script without question. Becky Lynch represents everything they're afraid of: unpredictable, outspoken, and too big to control. This is why they're systematically destroying her credibility. Every loss, every weak storyline, every time they make her look foolish on television, it's all part of a calculated effort to diminish her star power and make Liv Morgan's eventual victory seem deserved rather than manufactured. The alliance shifts we're seeing aren't random, they're strategic. WWE is creating a new hierarchy in the women's division with Liv Morgan at the top, surrounded by wrestlers who will elevate her through association while isolating Becky Lynch as the problem that needs to be solved. Look at who's being positioned as Liv's allies versus who's being associated with Becky. Notice how the commentary team talks about each woman's accomplishments. Pay attention to the social media promotion each wrestler receives. This isn't organic storytelling, it's corporate restructuring disguised as entertainment. The women's division is being rebuilt around Liv Morgan's championship reign, and every decision is being made with the goal of erasing Becky Lynch's influence and legacy. This is revisionist history happening in real time, and they're counting on your short memory to make it work. Here's what really makes this situation infuriating: WWE is manipulating you, the fans, into accepting this transition. They're using every psychological trick in the book to make you turn against Becky Lynch and embrace Liv Morgan as the rightful champion. The heated exchange we witnessed was carefully scripted to make Becky look like the aggressor, the bitter veteran who can't accept that her time is over. Meanwhile, Liv Morgan is positioned as the fresh-faced champion who's just trying to prove herself against an ungrateful legend who won't step aside gracefully. But here's the truth they don't want you to see: Becky Lynch isn't bitter, she's fighting for the integrity of women's wrestling. She's refusing to quietly fade away while a less deserving competitor gets handed everything she had to earn through blood, sweat, and tears. Let's put this in perspective, because WWE is counting on your ignorance of history to sell their narrative. Before Becky Lynch became the women's wrestling in WWE was an afterthought. Matches were short, storylines were shallow, and the division existed primarily to fill time between men's segments. Becky Lynch changed all of that. She elevated women's wrestling through sheer force of personality and in-ring excellence. She made it cool to be a women's wrestling fan. She proved that female competitors could carry premium live events and generate mainstream media attention. But now they want you to forget all of that. They want you to believe that Liv Morgan's championship reign is the natural evolution of the division rather than a corporate decision to replace an uncontrollable star with a manageable one. This is the same revisionist history they tried with The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and every other superstar who became too big for their carefully controlled environment. The only difference is that social media and modern wrestling coverage makes it harder to hide their manipulation tactics. The upcoming premium live event isn't just another wrestling show, it's the culmination of months of careful planning designed to legitimize Liv Morgan's championship reign while delegitimizing Becky Lynch's claim to greatness. Every match, every storyline, every backstage segment will be crafted to support their predetermined narrative. Think about the tournament structure and how it favors certain outcomes. Consider the opponents each woman will likely face and how those matches will be booked to tell a specific story. Pay attention to the commentary team's bias and how they'll frame each woman's performance. This isn't competition, it's an elaborate magic trick designed to make you believe that Liv Morgan's victory is earned rather than orchestrated. And the worst part is that they're doing it at the expense of the woman who made the division worth caring about in the first place. The mind games happening between Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan are nothing compared to the psychological manipulation WWE is using on the audience. They're exploiting your emotions, your loyalty, and your desire for compelling storytelling to sell you a narrative that benefits their corporate interests rather than wrestling excellence. Every promo, every social media post, every interview is carefully crafted to influence your perception of these two wrestlers. They're using Becky Lynch's passion and intensity against her, making her look desperate and unhinged, while presenting Liv Morgan as calm, confident, and championship-worthy. But here's what they don't want you to realize: desperation and intensity are exactly what made Becky Lynch great in the first place. Those qualities aren't weaknesses, they're the fire that separates true champions from corporate creations. The women's division is being reorganized around corporate politics rather than wrestling ability. The alliances forming around this rivalry aren't based on natural storytelling or character development, they're strategic positioning designed to support WWE's preferred outcome. Look at who's being associated with each woman and ask yourself why. Consider the wrestlers who are staying neutral and what that says about the backstage dynamics. Pay attention to which women are getting television time to express their opinions and which ones are being kept silent. This systematic approach to alliance building is designed to create the illusion of organic support for Liv Morgan while isolating Becky Lynch as a divisive figure who's holding back the division's progress. WWE's propaganda machine is working overtime to rewrite the narrative around both women. They're using their media partnerships, social media influence, and promotional power to shape public opinion rather than letting the wrestlers' abilities speak for themselves. Notice how different media outlets are covering this storyline. Pay attention to which talking points are being repeated across multiple platforms. Consider how the narrative is being framed in ways that benefit WWE's corporate interests rather than presenting an objective view of the situation. This is modern wrestling propaganda at its most sophisticated level. They're not just trying to get you to cheer for their chosen wrestler, they're attempting to fundamentally alter your perception of wrestling history and merit-based success. What's happening between Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan isn't just about two wrestlers or one championship, it's about the soul of women's wrestling in WWE. The outcome of this rivalry will determine whether the division continues to be driven by talent and authenticity or becomes completely corporate controlled. If Liv Morgan's manufactured push succeeds, it sends a message to every woman in the locker room that politics matter more than performance, that image is more important than ability, and that playing the corporate game is the only path to success. But if Becky Lynch can overcome the systematic campaign against her, it proves that authenticity and excellence can still triumph over corporate manipulation. It shows that the fans won't be fooled by elaborate marketing campaigns and predetermined narratives. Here's what's going to happen at the premium live event, and why it's going to make you furious. Liv Morgan will retain her championship through a combination of interference, questionable referee decisions, and booking designed to make her look strong while making Becky Lynch look like she's past her prime. The match itself will be structured to tell WWE's preferred story rather than showcase the best wrestler. Commentary will emphasize Liv Morgan's heart, and determination, while downplaying Becky Lynch's superior experience and in-ring psychology. And afterward, the wrestling media will praise the passing of the torch and the bright future of the women's division, completely ignoring the fact that they just witnessed the corporate burial of one of the greatest women's wrestlers of all time. But here's the thing, we don't have to accept this. The WWE Universe has the power to reject their manufactured narrative and demand better. We can refuse to buy into their propaganda and continue supporting the wrestlers who actually deserve our attention. Don't let them rewrite history. Don't let them convince you that Liv Morgan's championship reign is anything more than corporate favoritism. And most importantly, don't let them bury Becky Lynch without a fight. The women's division needs fans who can see through the manipulation and support wrestlers based on talent rather than corporate preference. We need to be smarter than their marketing campaigns and more loyal to excellence than to their predetermined storylines. The heated exchange between Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan revealed more than just tension between two wrestlers. It exposed the corporate machinery that's trying to reshape women's wrestling according to their image rather than our standards. This isn't just entertainment, it's a battle for the soul of wrestling itself. Are we going to accept manufactured stars and predetermined narratives, or are we going to demand authenticity and merit-based success? The choice is ours, and King and Queen of the Ring will show us exactly where WWE's priorities really lie. Will they reward the woman who built the division or the woman who fits their corporate mold? The answer will determine not just the future of these two wrestlers, but the future of women's wrestling itself. And if we don't speak up now, we might not get another chance to influence the direction of the division we claim to care about. What's your take on this corporate conspiracy? Can you see through WWE's manipulation tactics? Will you stand with authentic excellence or manufactured mediocrity? The comments section is where the real battle for women's wrestling begins. You think you know what happened between Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan on SmackDown? Think again. What WWE showed you was nothing compared to what really went down backstage, and the company is desperately trying to control the narrative before King and Queen of the Ring. But here's the thing, the truth always comes out, and what I'm about to reveal will completely change how you see this entire rivalry. Liv Morgan has been playing mind games since day one, but Becky Lynch just called her bluff in the most brutal way possible. In WWE, they're panicking because this feud has spiraled completely out of their control. The heated exchange you saw on television was choreographed theater compared to the real animosity brewing behind the scenes. Let me paint you the real picture here. Becky Lynch didn't just challenge Liv Morgan, she systematically dismantled everything Liv represents as champion. And the way she did it. Pure psychological warfare that left Morgan looking like a deer in headlights. WWE wants you to believe this is just another rivalry, but what's actually happening is the complete destruction of Liv Morgan's credibility as a champion. Here's what WWE doesn't want you to understand. Becky Lynch's return isn't just about reclaiming a title. It's about exposing how weak the women's division has become in her absence. When the man stepped away, WWE tried to fill that void with manufactured champions and forced storylines. Liv Morgan was supposed to be the fresh face, the new star to carry the division forward. Instead, what we got was a champion who's been coasting on luck rather than skill. The numbers don't lie, and neither does Becky's track record. As the first ever undisputed WWE Women's Champion, she didn't just hold gold, she revolutionized what it meant to be a women's champion in WWE. She carried two divisions simultaneously while Liv Morgan struggles to carry one. That's not an opinion, that's a statistical fact that WWE executives are desperately trying to make you forget. But here's where things get really interesting, and this is where WWE's narrative starts falling apart completely. The heated exchange between these two wasn't just about championship aspirations, it was about legitimacy. Becky Lynch essentially called Liv Morgan a paper champion, and Morgan's response. Weak, defensive, and exactly what you'd expect from someone who knows they don't belong at the top. Let's break down exactly what happened during that confrontation, because WWE's commentary team glossed over the most damaging moments. When Becky questioned Liv's credentials, Morgan couldn't provide a single compelling argument for why she deserves to be champion. Instead, she resorted to personal attacks and tried to change the subject. That's not champion behavior, that's someone who knows they're out of their depth. The psychological warfare Becky employed was masterful. She didn't just attack Liv's wrestling ability, she attacked her entire identity as champion. She questioned her decision-making, her leadership of the division, and most devastatingly, her worthiness to hold a title that Becky herself elevated to unprecedented heights. In Morgan's response, she crumbled under the pressure, proving Becky's point better than any promo ever could. But WWE is trying to spin this as a competitive rivalry between equals, and that's where their narrative becomes completely dishonest. These aren't equals. Becky Lynch is a proven main event star who's headlined WrestleMania and carried the entire women's division on her shoulders. Liv Morgan is someone who's been pushed beyond her capabilities and is now facing the consequences of WWE's failed experiment. The alliance shifts happening in the women's division tell the real story here. Notice how other wrestlers are positioning themselves. They're not rallying behind Liv Morgan because they know what's coming. They can see the writing on the wall just like we can. When King and Queen of the Ring happens, we're not just going to witness a title change, we're going to see the complete dismantling of everything WWE tried to build in Becky's absence. Here's what makes this situation even more infuriating. WWE knew this would happen. They knew that putting Liv Morgan in this position would expose her limitations, but they did it anyway because they needed someone, anyone, to fill the void left by Becky's hiatus. Now they're scrambling to make it look competitive when everyone knows the outcome is inevitable. The mind games have already begun, and Liv Morgan is losing badly. You can see it in her body language, hear it in her promos, and witness it in her in-ring performance. She's fighting a psychological battle she's not equipped to win against someone who literally created the blueprint for modern women's wrestling dominance. This isn't David versus Goliath, this is David versus someone who's already slain multiple Goliaths and is looking for her next conquest. WWE's booking of this feud reveals their complete lack of faith in Liv Morgan as a long-term champion. They're using her as a transitional placeholder until they can get the title back on someone who can actually carry the division. The heated exchange wasn't meant to establish Morgan as a credible threat, it was meant to remind everyone why Becky Lynch is the man, and why the women's division has been directionless without her. The most telling part of this entire situation is how WWE is already setting up Morgan's excuses for when she loses. They're building in storylines about mind games and psychological warfare, giving her convenient reasons for why she couldn't hang with Becky Lynch. That's not how you book a champion you believe in, that's how you book someone you're preparing to replace. Let's talk about what King and Queen of the Ring really represents for both of these women. For Becky Lynch, it's a coronation, a return to her rightful place at the top of the division she built. For Liv Morgan, it's an execution, the end of a championship reign that never should have happened in the first place. WWE can dress it up however they want, but those are the cold, hard facts. The heated exchange exposed every weakness in Liv Morgan's armor, and Becky Lynch took notes. She identified exactly where to apply pressure, exactly which buttons to push, and exactly how to systematically dismantle Morgan's confidence. This wasn't just a verbal confrontation, it was a clinical dissection of a paper champion by the woman who set the standard for what a real champion looks like. What's even more damaging for Liv Morgan is how this exchange revealed her complete lack of a compelling championship narrative. When pressed to explain why she deserves to be champion, she had nothing. No inspiring story, no list of dominant victories, no clear vision for the division's future. Just empty platitudes and desperate attempts to deflect attention from her own shortcomings. The alliance dynamics in the women's division are already shifting in anticipation of the inevitable. Smart wrestlers are distancing themselves from Morgan because they know associating with a failed champion experiment will damage their own credibility. Meanwhile, everyone wants to be on Becky Lynch's good side because they know she's about to reclaim her throne and reshape the entire division once again. Here's the part that should make every wrestling fan angry. WWE wasted months of our time with this Liv Morgan championship experiment when they could have been building compelling storylines around wrestlers who actually deserve main event opportunities. Instead, we got a placeholder champion who was never equipped to handle the pressure of being at the top, and now we're watching the predictable collapse in real time. The psychological warfare element of this feud isn't even close to being fair. Becky Lynch is a master manipulator who's been playing mind games at the highest level for years. Liv Morgan is someone who struggles with basic character consistency and crumbles under pressure. Putting them in a psychological battle is like bringing a knife to a gunfight. The outcome was never in doubt. WWE's desperate attempts to make this look competitive are insulting to our intelligence as fans. They're trying to convince us that someone who's never proven herself at the main event level can somehow match up with the woman who redefined what it means to be a women's champion in WWE. It's not happening, and they know it's not happening, but they're committed to this narrative until the bitter end. The most frustrating part is that this entire situation was completely avoidable. WWE could have kept the title on a credible champion until Becky returned, or they could have used this time to properly develop someone who could actually hang with the man. Instead, they chose the easy route of putting the belt on someone who wasn't ready, and now they're dealing with the consequences of that decision. When King and Queen of the Ring arrives, we're not going to witness a competitive match between two elite athletes. We're going to watch Becky Lynch reclaim what was always hers while Liv Morgan finally faces the reality that she was never championship material to begin with. The heated exchange was just the appetizer. The main course is going to be a complete demolition. The saddest part of this entire situation is that Liv Morgan had potential to be something special in the right role. But WWE's desperation to create a new star led them to push her too far, too fast, into a position she couldn't handle. Now instead of being remembered as a promising talent who developed over time, she'll be remembered as the champion who couldn't hang with Becky Lynch when it mattered most. This is bigger than just one rivalry or one championship match. This is about the future direction of the entire women's division and whether WWE is committed to maintaining the standards that Becky Lynch established during her historic run. The heated exchange between these two women wasn't just a confrontation, it was a referendum on what it means to be a champion in modern WWE. The writing is on the wall, the outcome is inevitable, and WWE knows it. They're just hoping they can milk this storyline for everything it's worth before the house of cards comes tumbling down at King and Queen of the Ring. But here's the truth they don't want you to realize: this was never a fair fight, and it was never meant to be won. What are your thoughts on this complete dismantling of Liv Morgan's credibility? Do you think WWE deliberately set her up to fail, or was this just poor planning that spiraled out of control? And most importantly, how do you think the women's division will recover from this obvious mismatch once Becky Lynch inevitably reclaims her throne? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this conversation is far from over, and the fallout from King and Queen of the Ring is going to reshape everything we thought we knew about WWE's women's division. Don't let them silence the truth. Share this video and let everyone know what's really happening behind the SmackDown curtain. The wrestling world needs to wake up before it's too late. If you thought tonight's story was wild, trust me, what happens next will blow your mind. So don't stop now. Click on the video right here on your screen to continue the chaos, the drama, and the inside scoop only we deliver. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and join the WrestlingNewsCC family, where the real stories of WWE come to life. See you in the next one.